This is Yair, Davidiy, speaking to you from the land of Israel. Today we are about to discuss the tribe of Benjamin. We have given several talks in the past concerning Benjamin. We'll give another one where new matters of interest have come up, have come to our notice, and this concerns the characteristics of Benjamin according to Rabbinical scholars. And we think it's worth knowing. It's of interest. Benjamin was one of the 12 sons of Israel. Israel was also known as Jacob. Jacob had 4 wives. His favorite wife was Rachel. Rachel gave birth to Joseph and to Benjamin. In other words, Benjamin was the full brother of Joseph. They were both from the same mother. Benjamin and Joseph were full brothers. And Benjamin was the youngest brother. And we have aspects of Benjamin. Benjamin was the youngest brother. He's also called the beloved. He had all his life, all of the time of his existence, had this aspects of the younger brother, of the younger son, of the one who is loved, the little one, who everyone finds favour, who everyone looks at with favourably. To a degree, this was the aspect of Benjamin. Benjamin was the one of whom it was said that his father's heart cleaved unto him, and his father needed his presence. And even as an adult, all his life, even as a tribe, this aspect of having a good heart, of being favourable to a certain degree, clings to the seed of Benjamin. And this is what we have. Benjamin was known. He was a famous tribe. He was important in the Old Testament. In the book of Judges, we have Eglon, who was killed by Ehud from the tribe of Benjamin. Eglon was from Moab. He was the tyrant oppressing Israel. And Ehud from the tribe of Benjamin assassinated him and then led a rebellion against the Moabites who were oppressing the children of Israel. And this is what we have. There are other references to other heroes from the tribe of Benjamin. Eventually Saul, who was also from the tribe of Benjamin, became the first king of Israel. And after Saul came King David, who was from the tribe of Judah. So we had Saul, who's king of Israel, and he was the first king of Israel. And Saul had a son called Jonathan, who was a friend of David. It was said that David and Jonathan were very close to each other. This aspect of friendship, of loving, of giving to others is an attribute of Benjamin, that we find it. And we find this in the attitude of Jonathan, the son of Saul, to King David. And we also find that the tribe of Benjamin had humility. Saul had humility. Saul was one of the kings who had humility. And Saul was commanded as the king of Israel by the prophet Samuel. It was commanded to go and wipe out the Amalekite people. The Amalekite people had oppressed the Israelites, had attacked them. They were the first anti-Semites, the first haters of the Jewish people of the Israelite nation. And Samuel gave the commandment of the God Almighty to Saul to go and wipe them out, and to wipe out all of them, and all of their livestock, all of the beasts, and the cows, and the sheep, and everything that belonged to them, to wipe it all out. So Saul went, he led the Israelites to battle against the Amalekites. He defeated them, and he did wipe out nearly all of them, but he left their king Agag alive, and he also left alive a portion of the livestock, a portion of the beasts, of a burden, and the beasts that were used for meat, for leather, for wool, for clothing, and so on, and for milk products. He left a portion of these animals alive. And when Samuel came and he met Saul, he asked him what is going on. Why did he leave this section of the Amalekite existence in being, as it was? And Saul said that he did so because the people wanted it that way. He feared them, he said, and the people wanted it that way. And also the beast will be used for sacrifice, to offer up sacrifices to the Almighty. And so Samuel was reproved Saul, and he told him, if you are small in your own eyes, you are the head of the tribes of Israel, and you should have acted differently. Samuel says, we find in 1 Samuel 15, verse 17 onwards, and it says, is it not true that though you were little in your own eyes, in other words, in your own eyes, as far as you're concerned, you're a small person, but you were made the head of the tribes of Israel, and the Lord anointed you king over Israel. And the Lord sent you on a mission and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites. The Amalekites were sinners, and that was why they had to be destroyed. Go and destroy them, and fight against them until they are exterminated. Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord, but rushed upon the spoil, and did that was evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul said to Samuel, I did obey the voice of the Lord, and went on the mission on which the Lord sent me, and have brought back Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took some of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the choicest of the things devoted to destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord your God at Gilgal. That was the answer of Saul, that he did it because of the people, that his excuse was that he had done most of what he'd been commanded to do, the most important parts, the most important things, but he left a little minor detail. He had not fulfilled it because that was the way the people wanted it. And so he was reproved by Samuel. Saul was consequently told that the kingdom will be taken from him and given to another. So, we find here that Saul had slipped up. He had failed. He hadn't fully fulfilled the task that had been set upon him. So Rabbi Shmuel Levitz, in a Musa talk, a self-improvement talk, he noted that Saul was challenged because he should have been acted differently, despite being little in his own eyes. In other words, despite being very humble, and not being a proud person, he should nevertheless have fulfilled the task that was set upon him, which involved acting with a high hand and acting with the pride and the dignity that was expected of a royal being, that the king was expected to bear about him. We have the commandment, Deuteronomy 17:15, you shall surely set a king over you. And so the sage said, what does it mean, you shall surely set a king over you? You have to have a king, and this king has to be someone who will be put over you, who will do what has to be done, and that you will respect him as a king and have fear of him. So the king has to be someone who you have to have fear of, to obey, to do what he tells you to do. And he has to act in such a way to make it clear that this is what is expected of his subjects. And Saul had not done this. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yaakov Levi, he points out that there's a tradition that when the Israelites came to pass through the Red Sea, when they were coming out of Egypt, the sea split aside for them. And so the tribes had to move through the divided sea, but some of them that were afraid, they saw this sea, this big, enormous ocean, expansive sea, suddenly split aside and stand up with walls of water on each side, and then they were told to walk through the space that had opened up between the two halves of the sea. But nevertheless, they were afraid. The people were afraid. So the tribe of Benjamin, according to tradition, and also a hint in the book of Psalms, the tribe of Benjamin, they volunteered to go first. And as a reward for this act of voluntary self-sacrifice, it was decreed that the first king of Israel would come from them. And Saul was the king of Israel. He was the first king of Israel, and he was from the tribe of Benjamin. So we see here that from this we see that the tribe of Benjamin had the attribute of self-sacrifice. They were prepared to sacrifice themselves. This was the attribute of humility. And through this attribute of humility, which in effect humility means self-sacrifice, the willingness to give up of what you have in order for the things to go ahead, that was the attribute of humility that Benjamin had. They produced the first king, but nevertheless the king, once he becomes king, even though he is naturally a humble person, He has to overcome this quality when it's needed to do. He has to know when to put this good quality of humility aside and act with pride and act with determination and with monarchical decisiveness, with decision, with firmness as a leader. And Saul had failed in this. About the self-sacrifice, the humility, the attribute of humility that Benjamin had. And of humility, in effect, being an expression of self-sacrifice. What is a humble person? A humble person is someone who is prepared to sacrifice himself, to sacrifice his own honour, his own self-respect even, in order that things should go well for others. That is humility. That is what Benjamin had. Benjamin had this aspect of humility, or this aspect of giving up of himself for others. This was pointed out by Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yaakov Levi in the book on the prophets. So this is what we have. Benjamin is intermediary between Judah and Joseph. He intervenes. He is an intermediary between the two different heads of the Israelite nation. The Israelite nation, in effect, is headed by Judah and Joseph. The Israelite nation, 12 tribes of Israel, but the 12 tribes of Israel divided into two different sections. You had Judah in the south, and in the north you had Joseph. That is, you had the 10 tribes headed by Joseph, and sometimes referred to under the generic name of Joseph. Sometimes in certain sections of the Bible, the term Joseph, or the house of Joseph, applies to all of the 10 tribes. The 10 tribes as distinct from the 2 separate tribes to the 2 remaining tribes of the house of Judah and Benjamin, headed by the house of David. That was they were the tribes that remained in the south, and from these remaining tribes came the present-day Jewish people. All of the other tribes, or a good portion, or most of them, all of the other tribes, or at least the great majority of them, were taken into exile, and they became the lost 10 tribes of Israel. And we trace them to Western peoples. That is what we do. This is what our organisation Brit-Am is concerned with. And all events in Jewish thought, in rabbinical thought and philosophy, Judah and Joseph represent 2 aspects of the Hebrew nation, 2 separate portions of the Hebrew nation. And they both fulfill tasks of their own. They both have tasks of their own. They have attributes of their own. They have things in the history, and they have a different destiny that they each have to do. They each have to fulfill. They have their own separate duties. Eventually they will reunite. They will come back together. At present they are divided, and there's a reason for this, and they have their own separate tasks to fulfill. Nevertheless, they need each other. Even at this stage, in this intermediate stage, they need each other. And they need attributes. Each one needs attributes of the other. And in a sense, we find with Judah, the tribe of Benjamin, or most of the tribe of Benjamin, even though some of the tribe of Benjamin did go with the 10 tribes at a different stage. Nevertheless, we find with Judah, Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, and Benjamin, as if to say, gives to Judah something of Joseph. So to Benjamin, in a sense, he intervenes, he has a connection with Joseph, and he gives to Joseph something of Judah. And this is an important point. This is a valuable insight that we have here, and this was given to us. This was a valuable insight that we have here. This was pointed out and explained by Rabbi Uri Shrager ben Aharon Alevi Weingratz. Okay, I hope I pronounced the name well enough, but if not, he wrote an important piece of work on this aspect of Benjamin and Joseph and Judah. Just for the background, just for a little bit of background to bring out this point, we should remember that Joseph was the son of Jacob. Joseph and Benjamin were the 2 sons of Rachel, the wife of Jacob. And Joseph was one of the favourite sons, together with Benjamin, of Jacob. And Joseph had dreams. He had dreams. He had dreamed about ruling over his brothers, and the brothers didn't like it. They thought he was plotting something against them. He spoke of these dreams. He brought them to his father, and his father told him to be quiet, not to talk that way. It's antagonizing the brothers. It's not good to talk that way. Also, Joseph told stories. He brought tales. The Bible says Brit-Am in Hebrew. In other words, Joseph actually brought, this is a point a lot of people are not aware of, Brit-Am. He brought bad tales. Joseph brought bad tales of his brothers to his father. And the sages said that in effect he was mistaken. He thought they were doing something, but they weren't. He thought they were misbehaving or behaving improperly, but they weren't. It was all one big series of misunderstandings. But Joseph had brought these tales to his father about his brothers, and of course the brothers didn't like it. And they thought he was plotting against them because he was talking about ruling over them and having these crazy dreams, and his father was showing him favour. His father had acquired a special cloak that he had given him, and this cloak was probably a tartan-type design, and it reflected royalty, according to the Mephoshim, was in this special type. Cotton had passed him was a type of robe that we also find the daughters of David wearing, and the commentators say that this was a special type of design that signified royalty, and the sons of the kings and the royal houses wore it. And Jacob had given this cloak to Joseph, which could indicate to his brothers that Joseph was going to be placed in charge over them. And he had dreams of this, and also he's bringing tales about them to his father, which were dangerous. They had dangerous implications. Therefore, they plotted to kill him. And they plotted to kill him, but then Reuben, one of the brothers, the elder brother, he told them not to kill him, but rather to throw him into a pit, throw him into a hole, and Reuben and leave him to die. Reuben intended to come back later, and then Reuben went away. Reuben intended to come back later and take Joseph out of the pit and return him to his fathers, but when he came back, he wasn't there. Why wasn't he there? Because in the meantime, a caravan of Midianite Ishmaelites had been passed by, and Judah had suggested to the brothers that they should pull Joseph out of the pit and sell him to these Ishmaelites going down to Egypt, which they did. So they did. This they sold Joseph into Egypt, into servitude. Joseph was bought by Potiphar. Then the wife of Potiphar tried to seduce him, and when he refused, he was accused of attempted rape, and he was placed in prison, and from prison, because of his ability to interpret dreams, he eventually became the second in command to the king of Egypt, the virtual ruler over Egypt, and he also saved Egypt from famine. He stored up provisions, 7 years of famine, and he helped save the Egyptians and save the surrounding nations. And this same famine, this same famine of lack of grain, of lack of things growing in the field, also hit Canaan, where Jacob and his sons were. And they needed provisions, they needed food, and they heard that there was food to be bought in Egypt. So Jacob sent his brothers down into Egypt to buy food, but he kept Benjamin, his favourite son, back with him because he was afraid of something happening to him as well. In the same way as something had happened to Joseph. He didn't exactly know why. They gave him the impression, the brothers had given him the impression that a wild beast had probably killed Joseph. So the brothers came down, and Joseph saw them, and he met them. He recognized them. They did not recognize him. He gave them food to take back to their houses, but he kept back Simeon as a hostage, and he told them that the next time they come back up out of Canaan, to bring Benjamin with him, to bring their youngest brother with him, because he said he suspected that they were spies. And this would prove that what they'd been saying, their stories or their explanations of their family and who they were was correct. So the brothers went home, they went back to Canaan, and they gave food to Jacob and the family and their families, and then they were there for a while. After a while, all the food ran out. And Jacob told them that they had to go back down to Egypt to buy more grain. And they told him that if they go back down to Egypt, they had to take Benjamin with them, because that was the condition. Joseph, or they called him the man of the land, the ruler, had placed upon them. And Jacob didn't want to. At first, Reuben one day said he would guarantee the return of Benjamin, but their father didn't accept that. And then Judah promised that he would stand as surety for Benjamin, and Jacob let them take Benjamin with him. So it says in Genesis 43, chapter 43, verse 8 onwards, Judah said to his father Israel, send the lad with me, that is, send Benjamin with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, because they needed food to eat and live. We as well as you, and so you need food, Jacob also needed food, and our little ones and our children. And I myself will be surety for him. Judah said he would be surety for Benjamin. You may hold me responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame before you forever. So this was a promise that Judah gave to Jacob. And so they went down. And when they went down, Joseph set things up that he would frame Benjamin as having stolen his chalice, stolen his special cup, his goblet. And he told the brothers that Benjamin would have to remain with him as a slave, and that they could go home. And then Judah intervened and said, no, I stood surety for the boy. Let me stand as a slave instead of him. And after that, Joseph revealed to his brothers who he was, that he was Joseph. I'm Joseph, he said, and they all wept, and they had a reconciliation. And things were settled between them. At all events, concerning this event, Rabbi Uri Shraga ben Aharon Levi Weingratz, he tells us that this confrontation, this type of confrontation, we could say, between Judah and Joseph, because Joseph wanted to keep Benjamin back, Judah wanted Benjamin to be let go, so they had a confrontation between them. And we see here that we have Benjamin is intervening element between Judah and Joseph. It is also because of this that Joseph reveals to the brothers who he is, and they are reconciled with each other as an attribute of unity, or bringing about unity here, that Benjamin in his very essence has. And we say, according to this Rabbi Shraga Weingratz tells us that Benjamin in principle, he shares the qualities of both. He shares the qualities of Joseph. He is righteous like Joseph was, because Joseph refused the sexual advances of the wife of Potiphar, and therefore he is considered righteous in rabbinical writings, so Joseph the righteous one. So they also say that Benjamin has similar attributes, and also Benjamin has attributes of Judah. Benjamin has the good eye of Joseph. Joseph has a good eye. The evil eye cannot rule over Joseph. Joseph looks at things positively. He gives people a positive feeling. He uplifts them. He guides them. He is not jealous of others, as if to say. He is positive. Joseph is optimistic. He has a good eye. He likes to see things go well, whether it's for his own things or other people's things. That is one of the attributes of Joseph. And Benjamin also has something of this trait. So too, Benjamin has the attribute of being sexually restrained to some degree, the same as Joseph was. He has this. On the other hand, Judah has a good heart. Judah has a good heart. That is, Judah thinks well, and has good inclinations towards other people, and he puts faith in them and enables them to have faith in themselves. And so Judah has this good heart, whereas Judah has a good heart, Joseph has a good eye. Benjamin has something of both of them, and he brings them together through this. Weingratz tells us that that is the present-day Jews, we lack Joseph. Joseph went with the lost 10 tribes. Joseph headed the lost 10 tribes. Joseph is gone. Joseph is an exile. He's fulfilling his other task. The present-day Jews lack Joseph, but through Benjamin they get something of Joseph is reflected back to them, because Benjamin is still with Judah. There's something of Joseph in the Jewish people which they receive via the tribe of Benjamin, who is with them. Also the temple was made. The temple of Solomon, and the site of the temple, the place where the temple will be rebuilt, was on the borderline between Judah and Benjamin. And the most holy portion of it was actually in the territory of Benjamin. And so Benjamin represents the temple, he represents the site of the temple, he represents the place where the temple will be rebuilt in the future. And so too, we have, through Benjamin, the Jewish people have this connection with that principle, with that hope of future deliverance and re-sanctification and purity and everything that the temple represented. So too, the temple has also the quality, through being what it is, even the wish to rebuild the temple or to dedicate oneself to this, has also a quality of potentially reuniting Judah with Joseph through its representation of Benjamin. Another point is that we saw how Judah said, I myself will be surety for him. Judah said to Jacob that he would stand as surety, as a pledge for Benjamin. He promised that he would stand as a surety for Benjamin, a guarantee for Benjamin that things would go well with Benjamin, that Benjamin would be returned to his father. And so we have this aspect, as the Rabbi points out, in later on, the case of Saul and David. Saul was the firstborn. Saul was the first king of Israel. He was from Benjamin, and he became king of Israel. And shortly, sometime after becoming king, he went to war against the Philistines. And all the people of Israel sent their able-bodied men to the army, who were in the fields. And so too David. David was the son of Ishai. He was the youngest son of his father, and all of his brothers went to the field to fight. They went to the camp of Saul, and David stayed behind to look after the flocks of the family. And meanwhile, all his brothers were in the field facing the Philistines. And on the Philistine side, there was a giant called Goliath. There was a giant called Goliath. He was a giant, and he was on the Philistine side. And every day would go back, stand out before the armies, and challenge the Israelites to send someone to fight him. And he said, if you have someone who can beat me, we will surrender to you. And if not, you should surrender to us. And so the Israelites, this was apparently the custom at that time, didn't know what to do. That everyone was afraid to fight this big giant. Meanwhile, David was sent by his father to his brothers to bring them provisions, to bring them dainties, to bring them gifts. And also he was told to take the surety of his brothers, to take their pledge, according to the Hebrew, arubatam, to take their pledge from them. This is sometimes translated as the news of them, but if you look in the margin, you will see pledge, and that is the yota, that is the more correct translation. So David was sent David was sent by his father to take their pledge. Actually, it meant something else. It meant pay their debts or take a certain legal document that they had to give to him and bring it back. Often in the Bible, people say things and then words are recorded, and we realise that they said more than they realised. They said more than they intended. That their words that are recorded in the Bible had a much deeper significance than they themselves knew about. So this explanation is that David, he was sent there. He was sent to take the pledge of his brothers, to take their pledge, and he went to the camp. And when he went to the camp, he heard about Goliath, and then he sought permission from Saul to go out and fight Goliath, and he did so, and he killed Goliath. He killed Goliath with a slingshot, and in effect he saved the army. So this could be interpreted to say that this was Judah. David was from Judah. Saul was from Benjamin. David had Judah had promised to be surety for Benjamin. And we find a repetition of this word in the message in the sending of David to the camp of Saul. And then when he got to the camp of Saul, he helped the kingdom of Saul. He helped Saul defeat the Philistines by killing Goliath. And in effect, he redeemed the pledge that Judah had made to their father concerning being a surety, looking after the welfare of Benjamin. Because Saul was first king of Israel, and he was from Benjamin. You can take it or like it, but I thought this is very nice, and it fits in with the Hebrew words, and there's some significance to it. Another point about Benjamin is that he has the attribute of empathy. Empathy. Rabbi Zvi Reisman, Ratzke Zvi, in a book, he also speaks about this. He speaks about Benjamin having the attribute of empathy for this, of feeling the plight or the needs of other people. It says in Deuteronomy of Benjamin, he says, there's the blessing of Moses to Benjamin. He said, may the beloved, even Hebrew Yedid, it is a friend of the Lord, dwell in security by him, who shields him all the day, and he dwells between his shoulders. This also could be referring to the temple, as it has been understood. But here we have Benjamin called the Yedid, that is a friend, the beloved one of the Almighty. This is an attribute of Benjamin. He is the beloved one. He is the one who God loves. And this is what the Bible itself says this. And also it says in Genesis 35:18 that it came about as the soul was departing, for she died, that she named him Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin. When Benjamin was born, his mother Rachel died in childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin. And she called the baby that was born Ben-Oni. Ben-Oni can mean two things. It can mean either the son of my sorrow, in other words, I gave birth to him when I was in travail and I died because of giving birth to him. It also has another meaning. It can also mean the son of my first strength. That was the name that his mother gave to him, Ben-Oni. The first of my strength is one of the meanings it can have. And his father named him Benjamin. In other words, Benjamin, the son of my right hand. The Heroism says that Benjamin had this attribute of being a friend, of being a friend of God Almighty, beloved of him, having empathy for others. He had love for other people. And we find this amongst the Jews. You do get Jews like this. They love for other, genuine feeling of empathy or sympathy for other people. My father mentioned this. This is something you find. And this apparently comes through Benjamin. Rabbi Reisman mentions that the tribes of Judah, of Levi and Benjamin, they all shared an interest in the temple. Judah and Benjamin shared the territory where the temple was built in, and the Levi was the one who served in the temple. The Cohens, the priests, and the Levites, they came from the tribe of Levi, and they were the ones who officiated in the temple service. So these three tribes, Judah, Levi and Benjamin, all had a stake, one could say, an extra interest in the temple and everything about it. More than the other tribes, they have this quality of self-sacrifice and dedication. And so this is a point. And Netziv, he quotes the Netziv, who we have also spoken of, a great commentator on the Bible. And the Netziv says that Benjamin has also the quality, he believes more in miracles. He relies on miracles. He believes in divine intervention, in supernatural events, supernatural things happening through prayer, through living a righteous life, and that the Almighty will do miracles for us. That is the attitude of Benjamin. Whereas Judah also believes in God. Judah is also very religious, can reach great heights, but Judah tends to look for solutions through the way of nature. In his eyes, even a solution in coming through the way of nature is even more powerful, is an even stronger proof of God's interest in us than a miracle would be. So we have these two attitudes, these two aspects of these two ways of looking at reality. Benjamin is inclined to put faith in miracles, to look for miracles, whereas Judah looks for help coming through natural means and causes. Rabbi Heroism also said that Benjamin has characteristics of heroism and even effrontery. He can be, but in a good sense, Benjamin can be put forward and pushy. But he does it because he wants good to come out of it in a positive manner. So these two attributes of Benjamin, which are worth noting. We have another Rabbi Yigal Ariel, in the book concerning Esther, Queen Esther, and both Queen Esther and Mordecai in the story of Esther. Esther was the niece of Mordecai and helped save the Israelite nation. They were from the tribe of Benjamin. They were related to King Saul, and they too had this attribute of royalty, of dignity, of aristocracy, of rulership, and this too is an attribute that Benjamin is associated with, as we find in other sources. May the Lord God of Israel bless you. Thank you.